Okay, so officially, hello everyone, welcoming you all to our today's online event, Bootstrapping a Startup as a solo tech founder in Japan. I'm super happy to welcome our today's speaker, Philippe, who has a very interesting career, first working as a typical kaisha-in, if I'm not mistaken, at the big tech giant in Japan, and then living in and launching his own startup, SewaYou. And I'm pretty sure that Philippe will explain in details about his startup. And the topic of today's event is bootstrapping. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you who are in the startup industry know what is it. And it could be a challenge in Japan, I believe, because I think that a lot of startups here usually raise money by asking investors and venture capitals or using other means. So today, Philippe is presenting to us a lot of insights from his personal experience, not only related to how to raise money as a startup in Japan, but also how to apply for the Japanese Japanese Permanent Residency. So yeah, for those of you who are foreign in Japan, I think this information is going to be super helpful. And yeah, so without you, I am giving the microphone to Philippe. Philippe, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sasha, for having me today. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And I've heard a lot from Le Wagon. So actually, I got a friend who just graduated a few months ago from Le Wagon as well. So it's an honor to be here. And yeah, today's topic will be around bootstrapping a startup in Japan as a solo founder. So a quick introduction of me. So my name is Philippe Khin. I'm 26. In a month, it's going to be 27. And I grew up in Cambodia. I actually was born in Cambodia, and then I moved to France when I was 7 years old. So I grew up in France, and I came to Japan 5-6 years ago. So I am a software engineer, so I write a lot of code, but I also do design, UX, UI, and some marketing stuff as well. And sometimes on my spare time, customer support for my own application as well. So this is me. And because it's been 5 years that I'm in Japan, a lot of things happen. I changed a lot of companies and stuff. So a quick overview of the timeline here. So I came to Japan when I was graduating freshly from a university. So it was in 2017 in October. So here I started my career in a big insurance company working as a web developer, so full stack. And I worked there for 1.5 years. And then I quit once trying to start my company. But because of some visa issue, I couldn't run a company legally just being by myself because I just own a working visa. So I decided to go back to work in July 2019 in a startup, a Japanese, like local startup, mid-size. I worked there for like 7 months, and then Microsoft Japan reached out to me, and then I get kind of like taken from there. And I worked for Microsoft for 1.5 years before I got my permanent residency. Then the next day, I told my boss that I quit. So it was my second time to quit my full-time job to start my company. And then it's been now for 1 year that I work full-time on it. So when did I start to work on my company? Actually, the second week of being in Tokyo. So I started to do that on the side, and I did it for 4 years as a side hustle before turning into a full-time job a year ago. So quick timeline overview here. So in 2018 March, so I released my first MVP of the product. So what is the product? So the product is a language exchange application that allows you to find native speakers with whom you can practice a language in person with. And those natives can be found nearby on an interactive map. So the idea actually comes from, I got a few friends coming to Japan, and they struggled to do and perform some administrative tasks, such as opening bank account, opening a line, mobile account, and these kind of things that require a lot of Japanese and at an advanced level. So I helped those friends to do that by bringing them in person to the city world and doing these kind of things. And I realized that even though I speak Japanese at that time, I can still have a lot of improvement by practicing those technical advanced level of Japanese. So I was thinking, so if I have this kind of problem, other people might have that too. Like other foreigners come to Japan having those language barrier issue, and Japanese local people who want to actually practice the foreign language. So quick brainstorm on the notebook, didn't have any like really like fancy software at the time, just a notebook, and me just starting prototyping the code. And it took me roughly 4 months to release the first product that was built on Django. So because we are in a bootcamp event, I'm gonna go a little bit technical here. So just a web app monolith code base with Python Django. And then the first application looks like this. So at that time, I wanted to learn Google API map, and then I wanted to plug that into my website. So just here, a dashboard where people can pin themselves somewhere. So those smiley icons, there are people who are willing to help and those who actually need help. So it was like my level at coding was as good as a new grad, just freshly graduating from university. So that's it for the first prototype. And then I promoted to a Facebook group. There's a group called Tokyo Network Expat. And I promote there because there are a lot of foreigners living in Japan, especially in Tokyo. So within a month, we got like 90 sign-up users. Then it was pretty good for like a side project that I did to learn more about programming, but also trying to solve this problem. And then that was not bad, right? But the fact is that behind the scene, the code is really messy. It was like a whole monolith, no best practice, just me putting things together. I didn't know how to write CSS. I just used like Bootstrap framework, just put things together, and it just, duct taping stuff just to make it work and kind of like validate the idea and the needs of the product. So let's write it. And then I disappeared for a few months, trying to learn the best practice, new frameworks as well. And after a few hundreds of Git commits later, I come up with a much more modern version of the website using React. So I rewrite the whole thing from Django to React. And the website looks like this. So a little bit brush up. So it took me like from March to December. So around like 9 months to learn a new framework from scratch and learn the new paradigm between separating front end, back end, serverless, API, and these kind of things. So here, the website a little bit renew and design. That was a side hustling because I still have my work full-time from 9 to 5. So I just do that on evenings, at night, but also on the weekends. After work, I was like this, and I still have a little bit of energy left. So go quick to the gym, clear my head, come back, code, rinse, and repeat. The struggle was real. So it was really hard to keep my energy like at a high level, trying to focus, learn new things, and implement those as well. And then a lot of users said that they do want a mobile app. And because it was a React web app, so I need to rewrite the whole thing into mobile app, right? And I decided to just use React Native. So kind of like hybrid framework that allows you to write mobile apps in JavaScript or TypeScript. So here again, I disappeared for a few months. And because the code can be kind of like ported easily from React to React Native, so it took me only 2 months to rewrite the whole React app into React Native app. So it took me like nightless sleeps, and I spent my time rewriting the whole things after a few hundred of Git commits again. Here's the new version release. So from December to March, it took me like 3 months to rewrite the whole thing. And now everything was on mobile. It was good. The feeling of pressing, the submit button on the App Store feels really good. That now you can do pretty much everything, web app, mobile app, landing page, anything. So it feels good. And so it was 2019 in March. And then I disappeared again for 2 years. I mean, because I was working at a corporate job, so I cannot really promote because it's still like a side hustling, right? So you need to focus on your main job and just keep it as a side hustle. So after 2 years exactly, and hundreds of iteration, revisiting my code, refactoring, rewriting, changing database and these kind of things, I came back, and currently the product looks like this. So a new brush up product with thousands of users actually currently, and you can see there's an interactive map where you can find language partners nearby or around the world if you plan to visit a country, and yeah, find friends there. Dark mode, light mode, anything you want. A calendar for available people, so you can quickly find who is available in the coming days, so you can quickly meet up. Suggested coffee to meet up, so you can find pretty much good place in Tokyo to hang out, socializing while practicing language. And like I said, customer was always right. And it was a good move to kind of like change from web app to mobile app, because now notification works better. People prefer the native feeling of having an app in their pocket rather than accessing a URL on the internet. There's still some way to go around that, but I'm not going into detail. So thanks for the compliments. And quick timeline for just SewaYou. So after I quit my job from Microsoft Japan in October last year, so I went full-time on SewaYou. And 2 months later, I got my first contact with VC and angels, because I started to get some traction on, social media. People invited me to speak at a small event, and then people reached out to me, and then they introduced me to another guy, and then the guy introduced me to another person that reached out to a VC. But then, we have discussion about business investment deals, but it was right before the holidays year end. So never do that, because after that, I lost momentum. Social momentum is real. So people forget about you, about your deal, because they have their life going on, they have all the hundreds of deals going on. So never start a business conversation right before holidays. And then I decided to just focus on the product. And meanwhile, I also incorporated the company. So on an easy to remember date, February 2022. So SewaYou Kabushiki Gaisha was born to prepare for future investment, but also just to separate my personal expense from the business expense, and just go back to focusing on improving the product. So in April, I start implementing the payment system, adding pro membership on the app, and I got my first paid users. And around the same time, I also got connected to another VC. So it's a local Japanese VC, because I was out there trying to share my work. People see that, they share with their friends, and then I got connected, and then I got introduced to a VC. I had a meeting on Zoom, a meeting in person, and then they decided to invest. It took 2 months to draft the terms agreement, and we have closed the seed round in July, at the end of July. So here's a few things I've learned doing all of this for 5 years now, 4 years as a side hustling, and 1 year full-time. So how I'm going to stay organized as a tech startup solo founder, because information flows from everywhere, literally everywhere. You need to do everything by yourself, not just the technical part, but also the marketing and these kind of things. For numbers, I got a question. For numbers, it's going to be on the next slide, so I'm going to tell you that. So because there are a lot of things happening, and you get to capture those information that might be really precious, right? Because everything can be used. You can catch a code that you find interesting, then you can use that as a blog article title, or a quote, or some ideas or features idea, engaging users by creating funny posts or this kind of thing. A lot of stuff come. So you need to have not just your physical brain, but what I call, it's not my term, but it's pretty popular on the internet. It's called second brain. So basically it's a digital space where you take notes, images, videos, short clips that you put into one central place. that you can resurface and make use of those as needed. And that's a really powerful thing to do, because our brain is made to have ideas, not to store them. So there are multiple apps out there on the market, Notion, Asana, Notes, and a lot of things. And I spent a lot of time studying those apps as well. It's one of my hobbies, but like, choose one that you can stick with. And I do not personally recommend writing on paper, because you cannot access those notes. Like if you're on a train, you cannot pull from your pocket your phone trying to search for information. So yeah, try out and find your own. As an illustration example, so the other day I went to an onsen, so hot spring. So I love onsen. Every weekend I go to onsen to refresh my idea. And I saw this picture on a vending machine. So I saw this and I was like, huh, interesting. So in English, there's two words, don't touch. And in Japanese, it's really polite, like, mazu wa uketsuke onegai itashimasu. And in my head, it was like, huh, this can be used somewhere, because my app is about language learning, right? So I can use that somewhere on my app. So I just took a picture, and then I scroll, like in my spare time, sometime on Quora. And Quora, people ask questions. And I saw a question that it was pretty interesting. So I'm going to translate the question. It was like, as a native, what kind of English made you cringe? So I posted this picture, and it got like 150 upvotes. And it got like 50,000 impressions. So 50,000 people eyeballs got to see this picture, and just that one picture that I took, and I captured it somewhere. And then after that, I edited my post to put a link to what SewaYou. So I got a few dozens of sign up just because of one picture. That's a small example of capturing information. And everyone has shower thoughts, right? It's even better to write them down, because the difference between those who have shower thought and those who have shower thought that they write down is that those ideas can be reused later on. And usually what happened with shower thought is that they came in the purest state, right? It's when your mind is clear, you have nothing to worry about, just enjoying your shower or your cold shower. And then the idea comes. It's like a spark in the universe, like nothing really interesting. A feature idea, some marketing strategy, some way to make people smile by putting out content. So the other day, like last year, a few days before I quit my job at Microsoft, actually a week before I quit my job, I have some shower thought about how I'm going to write my departure email, right? So right after the shower, I put them down in bullet points, and I just go on with my life. And on the last day, I start elaborating those ideas. If I didn't took those notes before, it would be gone forever, right? And on my last day, it would be something like rushy, a little bit in a hurry. So I cannot really express my words like clearly. And I write a post about that with my shower thought that I jotted down before on LinkedIn. And that post got me 9,000 likes. It was like my single viral post in my entire existence. It got like 680K impressions, so more than 500,000 of views, and 9,000. And I got like 3,000 followers on like connection on LinkedIn. And just because I write good thoughts about shower thoughts. So, and yeah, so that's another example of capturing information. So a couple of things to kind of like memorize, to take memo on. So if you see some good codes, good copywritings, good design, UX, UI inspiration. So I have an entire folder of competitors like app design or other apps that I can incorporate into my app, because, you know, you never reinvent the wheel. It's like a great, like a good artist copy, but like a great artist steal, right? So stealing ideas, putting them into your own second brain system. Memes, like a lot of people laugh, and sign up for your product just because you put a pretty good memes. Unpopular opinions, competitors' insight, users' feedback, your industry insights, and your app insight as well. So those should be memoed somewhere in a persistent way so you can resurface them as needed. And by the way, today's presentation slides that I prepare, actually maybe half of the content was already prepared beforehand in my second brain. So I just need to put them together. They are like just snippets that I put together. And here we go. We have a nice presentation, hopefully. So second point I've learned is that as a solo founder, you need to plan first, then execute in this order. And don't try to do both at the same time. Because when I started, I was biased toward taking action. So I have an idea, I need to write code about that. I need to release a feature about that. But as I grow up and I mature a little bit, I feel like it's exhausting to do that because it takes a lot of willpower to do something, right? Let alone if you mix your brain when it's in the builder mode and in the planning mode, because we don't use the same kind of like brain mechanism when we do both. So here, a popular example from Paul Graham. So he's the father of Y Combinator. So in one of his essay, he stated the fact that we have to think about two types of schedule: maker schedule and manager schedule. So this is when I code. So when I code, nobody talks to me and I don't reply to anyone. No meeting, no activity, nothing. I just code. And when I'm kind of in the planning mode, I have like maybe 30 minutes here, 15 minutes here, so I can planify one thing, jot down some thoughts, or write a post on social media, or just putting down some application features idea. I just go into the manager mode. And once a week, I choose a day where I just only do code. And then the other day, I do the rest. That's kind of like the workflow that I came to get used to after a while building my app. So executing on your planned task help with clarity. So you can get to know the scope and the feasibility of your project, estimation time. So you can know what time a task can take and planify ahead so that you can know which day you should code or which day you should manage or plan. And it also helps to get easier into the flow state. If tomorrow I decided that I'm going to do code, I just do code. And when I'm in the flow state, I'm like this, right? Nobody bothers me. I don't reply to anyone and I just code, right? Another lesson, and then I can switch to a few 5-minute breaks. So work as if you have teammates. Even though you are working by yourself as a solo founder, try to think of having multiple you, right? What I mean by that is that as a solo founder trying to bootstrapping a startup, you have a lot of things to do in multiple areas. And that's why it's important to give yourself a specific role and you need to stick to it. For example, today I'm in the CEO mode. I'm selling my company vision. I'm presenting slides. And when I code, I just do that. I do code and I do design, everything around technical things. And when I'm trying to promote things like writing social media posts, blog article, trying to reach out to influencers and these kind of things, I'm in the marketing mode. And the rest of the time, while I'm enjoying my onsen, having 10 minutes break, I might answer someone's inquiry on the app or replying to a review on the App Store. And that's the thing, because as a technical founder, the trap is that you always want to do code and more code. But building a startup is just not about coding, right? So when I raise money, I need to prepare like financial projection, writing a business plan, like due diligence and this kind of things. And if I stay in my mode of, okay, I'm a coder, I should code. it will just demotivate you from doing those things. So a trick and a hack for overcoming this is to, for example, if you need to prepare for financial stuff, like preparing a chart on Excel or this kind of thing, put yourself into the like CFO mode where you just need to do finance. And as a CFO, you should probably enjoy like putting together charts, doing financial projection and this kind of thing, right? Instead of, oh, I'm a coder, I should do that. So that's kind of like just a switch of having multiple you so that you can focus on a task, even though you don't like to do that task much. That's kind of like one trick that I use to overcome. So, yep. And a pro tip here, use we instead of I. So it gives you more power in your words. And that's what we do here. And as they said, I'm not in the team, I'm the team. All right, so a quick break if you have any questions. So I'm going to go through the question here. All right, so first question. While pitch VC and angels, do you face any language problem? So good question. In December, so my first contact with VC and angels, the VC was speaking in English, so I didn't have any issue with that. And the second VC where I closed my seed round were like just Japanese people. And I do speak fluently Japanese too, so it helps. But I guess if you don't speak a language that your VC speaks, I think you cannot really go deep into conversation, talking about the bigger vision and this kind of things. So yeah, overcoming the language barrier is kind of like a prerequisite if you want to get a deal quick from like people. So yep. What percentile are premium users? Thank you for asking. It's pretty low right now because I just started to implement the payment system, and it's a consumer social app. And the fact is that people are cheap. I'm not trying to, but like versus B2B, like business have a lot of money, but people, they do not commit to a specific app. Like people churn really quickly. People don't pay much. If they can use for free, they're going to use for free. So it's pretty low, under 1%. So at the moment, but in general, like from our competitor, so I've heard from a podcast from the CEO that they said that only 2% of the entire user base are premium users. But there will be different ways to monetize your app, such as having partnership, some form of advertisement. So pro membership with users is just one part of the monetization strategy. All right, thank you for the question. Liu-san, no question. When you're working alone, do you have any regrets of being reclusive, or did it ever occur to you to take a break? Good question. So I'm a human too, so sometimes I tend to kind of like get depressed or burn out, almost not really depressed to that point, but I have a few moments in my SewaYou journey where I wanted to just quit building SewaYou. So the first time was when I released the prototype version 1 from Django that I need to rewrite entirely in React. At that time, I was like, oh my God, like the entire code base is a mess. I don't even want to look into it again. And I need to learn a new framework. So it was kind of like overwhelming. So at that time, I wanted to quit, but then I feel like it's a good bet to use that technology because it's used everywhere. Even though I cannot build the project, I can still use that at my corporate job. So that was the time where I kind of like wanted to quit. And there also a time where I built another project where I wanted to kind of like get to use modern technology or just play around with the newest shiny object things. And I did it. And then I came back to SewaYou actually, because I feel like the issue that I'm trying to solve with SewaYou is much more like, it means more to me than the other projects. So yeah, And those was the time that I took kind of like break from the projects. All right, so I'm gonna go one by one. How do you see VC and angels in Japan compared to other countries? So I do not have experience with seeing other VCs from other countries yet, although I watch videos on YouTube about like YC and other big investors. But usually people want to invest in good quality companies. And I have a feeling that especially Japanese VC want to find companies that could make Japan go forward. And that was the case for my VC who invest in my company because, you know, America, they are known for the unicorns. Japan, we don't have a lot of unicorns. So a lot of VC want to bet on founders who want to bring innovation or like improving the country in general. So that's kind of like the feeling that I have. All right, so did you get high skill visa first before getting PR? Yep. Yep. So I got my, so just to summarize a little bit. So I got my high skill visa two times, so twice. The first time was when I switched to my job at a startup. I got 75 points. So that's the threshold to get to the permanent residency in 3 years. And then I moved to Microsoft, upgrade my salary, and then I upgrade my point to 80 points, where I can apply for the permanent residency within only 1 year. And yep, we need those to create a company. And that's why I did all of this. Do you crack the VC pitch in first time, or do you also have failure history in that? I will take your question later on because I have a section prepared for that. What's your current MRR? All right. Yeah, to be totally transparent. So we have like, so user base, we have around 8,000 registered users, but they come along from V1, right? So they come from Django version until now. And like a few percentage of those users are not active anymore, but we still have like a few thousands of active users. And MRR, so pro membership, yep, monthly recurring revenue. So pro membership only costs 500 yens, and currently we have just a few dozens of paying customers. So, but that's kind of like a starting point to get to validate your idea, because the best validation is to have people paying for your app, but more importantly, keep paying for your app in the following months. And for now, it's kind of like a good sign, like those who pay for the pro membership, keep it for the next months as well. So yeah, just a few dozens of clients, so like paid users, so not a lot. Is there any tips to increase PR visa points for the engineer, like acceptable certificate for increasing a point? Yeah, there are, and you should check the official page from the government. There are a lot of like IT related certification that you can get to increase your point. And increasing your salary is one. Getting the GLPT at least N2, N1 can also give you points, so you can get that. All right, last question. So, do you imagine? Hey, Stuart, ex-colleague, great to have you here. Do you imagine outsourcing the coding completely so you can focus completely on managing everything as CEO, sales, marketing, support, etc.? It's a good question. So, at this point of the company, the product itself is more mature comparing to other areas such as like marketing, distribution channel, or other things. And at least for this round, I do not have the budget nor the intention to hire coding engineers yet because of the budget restriction. And but later on, maybe on the next round, I'd be sure to hire like in-house, not just outsourcing, but like in-house engineers with whom I can work with, or start to build a team around engineers. And for now, I need to kind of like catch up the marketing and distribution part of the company as well, because now we have like technical things and marketing. So I need to catch the marketing up a little bit as well. So the budget for this one will be mostly allocated to that. Yep, thank you. All right, last question. So what's the best way to get into the startup ecosystem in Japan? So if you live in Japan, and I believe you are because you have Osaka in your name, it's just to start building. And I do believe it's maybe a bias toward technical founder, but it's much more appreciated to talk to someone who build, but who do not network a lot. I know a lot of founders who have nothing to show, but networking. And networking is good, but not at the stage where you have nothing yet to show. It can be like a prototype, a no-code solution, or even like a spreadsheet where you put some information inside that you can share to the world and bring value. That's kind of a way to start getting to talk to people. Otherwise, people will just see you as another person trying to network and get something from them. So first, maybe create something, try to bring value, and then you can talk to someone. And if they find something valuable in your product or your idea, they can introduce you to people, and the network kind of like start from here. Hope that answers your question. All right, thanks for the question. And all right, so we can move to the next section. All right. So another lesson I've learned is to have long, medium, and short-term roadmaps. Because when you're trying to build a product, there's a zillion of things you want to do and a lot of things that you need to catch up and write down so that you have like a broad overview of what you're trying to accomplish. Like I said, building a startup is pursuing relentlessly an idea that only you believe, and you need to make the whole world believe in your idea. So having a roadmap helps for that. And there are different types of roadmaps, such as product roadmaps. What kind of feature or core feature you want to implement so that your product can bring value to people, what its unique proposition value, and growth strategy. So what kind of plan you want to get, like how you're going to get users from which distribution channel, how you're going to grow that. Finance. So I start to realize that finance is really important. When I quit my job from Microsoft, I have like 1.5 years-ish worth of savings. So after 1 year, I do need to raise money. Otherwise, I need to find back another job or find a baito somewhere. So knowing your runway, even before raising money, is really important to get to know your financial situation, but also once you raise, how much runway you have for your future employees, for yourself, how much your server cost, and these kind of things. And team building. So even though you're a solo founder, in the future, you might want to build a team. So get to know in which area and what kind of position you plan to hire for, and what kind of task you want to delegate. So roadmap for everything. And write them down. All right, so fundraising when you don't have a team. Pitching is good. I actually pitched once on an event online. It was organized by the Shibuya Startup Support as well, with Sasha as well. So thanks for the opportunity. But build product people want is even better because from experience, pitching takes a lot of time and energy. Like preparing my pitch deck took me like 2 weeks of just doing that. And I need to come back to kind of like reformat it, find the best way to send your message and these kind of things. It's a good exercise and you need to do it at least once. But do not spend all your energy into that, and only pitch when you feel a strong need for fundraising and when you have strong leverage as well. That's kind of like personal experience. So in terms of like some stats, I talked to 2 VC, less than 5 angels, and 1 pitch event attended. So one VC that I didn't get much follow-up, and angels that were not really interested, or some just don't say neither yes or no, because they want to follow a bigger player if those players want to lead around. So I appreciate angels that say no directly so I can move on. And yeah, that was it. So with the Japanese VC, it took me one meeting on Zoom and one in-person cafe meeting, and they decided to invest. No pitch, it's just me at a cafe showing the app to them and showing some KPI traction, talk about the bigger vision and these kind of things. And they decided to invest. So the amount invested was 20 million GPY, so around $150K for less than 10% of equity. So that's kind of like the number behind it. And it was, yeah, a pretty good number because, yeah, we need capital to grow. That's kind of like the goal of a startup, especially fast growing startups. So, and yeah, I have heard stories from people like attending 38 events to pitch. Investors got like maybe 200 of no's and one single yes, and they finally get to raise, because everyone's stories is different, and mine is a little bit like, it's a little bit different as well. So I want to share my experience here as well. And I realized one thing. So the first time when I pitched to my investor, the VC, before the holidays, I was in the mood of, and in the mindset of, I need money. And it kind of like show in my words. I might sound like maybe desperate. So people can feel it, like, oh, this guy needs money, so I'm gonna make him wait, or I'm gonna give like a low valuation and these kind of things. So raise when you have leverage. And actually I managed to raise a few weeks after I got my first organic paid users. So that was a big leverage. So they can see that this guy stick to his product for already 4 years, didn't give up, managed to get money from them. So it's kind of like a validation on its own. So raise only when you have a big leverage if possible. So, and so this is specific for solo founder, but when you're a solo founder, your only army is your product, how good it is, what issue and how well the product is trying to solve people's problem, your execution power. So be a doer, not a talker. And when you have an idea, execute on it, show it, test it, iterate, and validate hypothesis. And you as a person. So because having investors is kind of like a marriage that you're going to stick with them for a while. And how well you're going to be with your investors, how likely you are as a person, and yeah, whether you're a good listener or you have a bigger vision trying to solve some big society issue, these kind of things. And that kind of brings to something I call personal branding, or PR, press relationship. That is really important. So I have like a small YouTube channel that I made like 4 years ago. It was just for introducing the app. And then the first time I quit my job, I put a video that was now 3 years ago. It got like 9K views. And after I quit my job, I made 3 videos. It's just like 3 simple videos. I'm documenting my journey, talking about the things I'm talking today as well. And it got a few eyeballs, so a few K of views. And those can be kind of like a document, a proof, a track record for you as a person. So when I talk, before talking to someone, either for an interview, for hiring, for like trying to research on your investor, I look at their profile online and I need information about them, right? I need to study the way they have like their point of view with the world and these kind of things. So documenting your journey is really important so that those people can really directly find you, and you do not need to explain anything. Like everything is out there. You just come to see it if you want. And then after we meet, like we are at a different level, right? Of kind of like mutual understanding. So it's really important to kind of like get to brand yourself, but also your company. And it attracts eyeballs for opportunities such as today. So if I didn't have these kind of things, like having LinkedIn presence or YouTube presence, get invited on podcast events, I wouldn't be here today. So that's kind of like important to me. And two important things when you fundraise. The first thing is traction. So traction is a rough, like approximate definition of, depending on how you look at it, but usually it's either you have a product or a beta or release product or product with already thousands of users with paid users. So different level of traction, but you need to have some extent of traction, because traction shows your execution power and how you as a founder manage to get people to convince them to use your product. That's kind of like the evidence that you cannot deny when you have traction. So it's really important. But also story, story, my friend. So you might have heard of like tech founders who pitch investors with just a slide deck without any product. It actually works as well, depending on who is behind the team and who you're talking to. But having certain kind of story that you can explain and why you're doing your product and why you're the best person to build that specific product might even increase your story credibility, right? And when you have both traction and stories, and the story of your company aligns with kind of like your personal story, it resonates, it helps you fundraise, but it also increases your valuation. So that's kind of like the things that I learned from fundraising as well. And play to your strengths. So everyone has their own kind of like unfair advantages, right? So I think I'm pretty good at coding, and I double down on that, because like if I don't implement the payment system, like the payment system take a while to do it, you need to debug on production and these kind of things. If I do not do that, nobody will do it, right? I will not expect an engineer coming from maybe a few months from now and try to make him implement the things that I'm supposed to be able to do. So find your unfair advantages and your strengths and double down on that. If you are good at marketing, build your company or personal brand online so that you attract eyeballs. Even though you have like not so good product, it would help to bring people and believers to help you bring your company to the next level. So find where you're good at and double down on that, but do not neglect on other areas as well. So even though I'm a software engineer, I build product, I still do a lot of marketing, maybe 10% or 20% of my time. I do write a lot of SEO friendly blog article. I do a lot of like research, market research, social media, this kind of thing, PR. So I'm talking to you right now. It's a form of marketing as well. And yeah, so find your strength, double down on that, but just lay the foundation for the other areas so that you can start to delegate that later on, and you know exactly what to put effort and energy in. And the final section of this presentation is what's next. So beyond the one-man show. So as you might have seen my story, 5 years in as a solo founder, but it's time now for me to expand because I could not possibly grow the app as fast as I want and as fast as users want, because it's a social network app, right? You need people on the app for people who join to find value in your app. Otherwise, people will churn if they find nobody around them to practice with. So I need capital, I need leverage, I need resource to expand the company. And like I said, if you want to go fast, you can go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. So I'm not trying to sound cheesy, but it's true. And yeah, even for your mental health and for your future vision, it's not possible to handle everything by yourself. So, but I emphasize on the fact that you need to know your stuff, right? Being a solo technical founder doesn't prevent you from knowing basic knowledge about fundraising, knowing basic knowledge about marketing, so that later on, when you bring someone, you know exactly where to double down your effort and delegating. And this is important for a lot of things. And again, this is the importance of the PR again. So for personal and company brand building, so people get attached to your story as a person, but also your company vision, like how people want to work with you in the future. So it helps for hiring as well. And it helps to kind of like having a track record, like I said before, so that people, when they discover your profile for the first time, they get to know you through your journey documentation, kind of, so that they get to know you as a person, even though you don't need to be there. So that's kind of a big leverage as well. It avoids you to have meetings just to get to know each other. You already have like resources and story documented somewhere so that people can reach out to you by those channels as well. And it helps for storytelling. So yeah, that's kind of like the things that the current stage of the company that I'm adding right now. So I managed to hire already a content marketer joining a few days ago. So let's see how it goes. And that's kind of like the beginning of this journey of building this beyond a one-man show. So join us to build this journey. But at the moment, we're not hiring yet. So, but please keep in mind, SewaYou, for your next career step. Maybe our paths can come across again in the future. And thank you for listening. And a quick call to action. So if you want to support or just want to play around with the app or find language partners, please scan this QR code or download SewaYou on the app and leave a review. It can help to get more exposure, and follow me on those channels in order: YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn at Philippe Khin. So thank you for listening, and I'll take your questions from now. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Philippe. Yeah, so we have around 10 minutes left. Time for last questions. If you have any question, any feedback, any advice you would like to give Philippe, feel free to write down in the chat. So far, I have, I see a lot of clappings to you, Philippe.
Thank you.
You amuse people and entertain them pretty well, I think.
Thank you. Thanks for your attention. Yeah.
And you have a question from Stuart in the chat.
All right, so I get back to the question. So we do another talk a quarter of the night. Thank you. So being solo can be very lonely. Have you been a member of any entrepreneurial community to help bounce ideas, get inspiration or coaching? Yep, so good question. So in terms of, I start with the end. So coaching, I do believe that we have coach everywhere, online, offline, right? Everyone can be a coach, not like properly in the definition of coach, but I do get some kind of like inquiries for coaching service, paid service, but I believe that I should not take paid coach service at the moment. It's just because all the resources that I need are available online, and every company is a little bit different, but there are still like a pattern of building a company, scaling it, and these kind of things. But those resources can be found, like plenty of videos on YouTube talk about that. So, and talking to other founders as well help. And yeah, I'm kind of like not really part of, but I try to attend like events that, you know, events with interesting topic to talk about, or like an invitation to talk on an event, but also like part of Slack groups as well. But the thing about Slack group is that I feel like you keep it at a superficial level in terms of engagement. You cannot replace being part of a Slack group than talking to someone, another founder fellow, for like 15 minutes, right? You learn more by talking to someone 30 minutes offline rather than being part of a Slack group where you get just to know people superficially, so kind of. And talking to your friends help a lot. your family, your friends, your sister, brother, boyfriend, girlfriend help a lot actually, because they have kind of like a neutral point of view regarding your startup. And that helps a lot to get to know your startup from a point of view of a stranger who do not live in your product every day, right? Because once you try to build something, you have your head inside of it and you cannot take a step back to see what's not going well, what is going well. So talk to your friends, talk to fellow founders if you can. And yeah, at the moment, I'm not taking any paid coaching service yet. So, but mentoring with your ex-colleagues, ex-manager, this kind of thing can also help. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
There's one question from my side, if you don't mind. So you built your product by yourself. So you coded it by yourself. Do you feel sometimes you would love to have some code review from other people?
Interesting question. So when you're building a startup as a technical solo founder, because like software engineering itself is an entire whole universe, right? You have best practice, you have documentation, writing things down, code review, using the latest version of a package and these kind of things, using like the latest trend, a lot of things that you can experiment and want to play with. But the thing is that coding is just one part of building a company, right? So I try not to push myself into trying to reach the perfect area, right? So at the minimum, like I have guidelines, I get to, like when you use open source library, you get to learn the patterns of writing good codes, searching for answer on forums online. And it's enough at the moment. Because, so from experience, let me tell you a story from experience. So I built a lot of features that get sunsetted, so deprecated, deleted, gone forever. And I spent a lot of time coding those features, even writing tests for those. But at the end of the day, you need to iterate really quick on your startup idea, try to find validation, get as close to product market fit, yet I'm really far from that. But trying to get to that step without really worrying about the quality of the code now at the moment. I believe that the quality of my code is at maybe 80% of what I want to reach, but the other 20% of the quality is just not worth the time investing in it at the moment. I do believe that we need to improve the quality of the code and having code review on that when you have other engineers to work with you. But at the moment, it's just enough for improving the product, iterated on that, checking as much as hypothesis that you want to validate. So yeah, hope that helps answering your question.
Thank you. Do you also accept, like you said, you're not hiring right now, but do you accept volunteers? We have a lot of students actually who might be willing to join the project as a volunteer, or just people in the community, okay?
Yeah, so at the moment, because I need to wrap my head around what kind of like team I want to build in terms of engineering, because like it's harder to manage the product side of a startup that is kind of like technical centered, even though like SewaYou is just a like platform connecting people, but behind the scene, there's a lot of like piece of technology connected. So at the moment, I do not plan to hire yet like volunteers, because one thing is that if I want to hire, I want someone full-time and in-house. That's just a matter of like involvement, but also like long-term involvement to kind of really improve the product and bring it to the next level technically. So at the moment, not yet volunteer, but I think about that. Yep.
Thank you. I also have a couple of last questions in the chat.
Yep, sure. I go through it. So pretty simple question. So Jeremy, I'm one of those people that like your post on LinkedIn when you left Microsoft. Thank you. may I connect with you on LinkedIn? Sure. Yep, my LinkedIn is here, so please feel free to connect. And yep, I think I lost the screen sharing. Maybe just, yep, here. All right, do you see my screen?
Yeah, you still share your screen.
Okay, right. Yep, we'll be glad to connect, so please feel free. Thank you. So Dimitri, are you ever having doubts whether all this is gonna work in the end and whether you might be wasting your time? I'm talking from own experience. How do you deal with frustration? Good question. So a lot of my friends and yeah, including my girlfriend, actually, because like when you build something like this, unless you give up by yourself, I think there's no really true failure that you can consider. Like building all of this taught me a lot of things, both technically and grow me as a person. Like I get to meet a lot of people, I get to work on interesting technology issue. And even though like one day the whole thing blow up and I still have all those assets, like being out there, so people remember that, oh, there was a product called SewaYou. I used to meet people and I used that a lot. Even that made me feel like I left something in the world, make a few impact on that. So for me, it wasn't a failure. And I can still like do something else, right? I can start another company and I would probably do that. And at the end, all those experiences just make me build another startup much more quicker than before, right? Because like when I started to build this, it was just trial and error, right? I have zero framework around startup things. Like I even designed my own logo on like a really old software. I use a software to kind of like design my business card that I don't even use it. So all of these things actually stay in me and I keep it, and there's no form of failure. So yeah, it's just an investment in oneself, as you said, Jeremy. So thanks for that, putting the words into that. So yeah, it's a big investment in you as a human and yeah, as a person. So no failure, properly speaking. So but just to add to this, I do believe in having no plan B is a good approach, because when you have a plan B, like, all right, so if this fails, I'm going to find another job at a corporate. It just put you in a different mindset of building a startup, right? It's like, yeah, it's like every day you think about a distant future that, okay, even these things do not work, I still have my salary at a corporate job that I can join later. It just doesn't put the pressure requires to build a startup, because like building a startup is really hard. And if you have a secure plan B, it kind of derail you from putting 150% of efforts into your startup instead of just maybe 80%, right? Because you still have this 20% of plan B, just in case plan B that you have somewhere in the distance or parallel universe, right? So I do not believe in plan B. I just go full in my startup. And yeah, that's kind of like my way of thinking right now. I might change later. But yeah, human involved. So depending on how much this thing is gonna bring me. And yeah, for now, it's just all in and let's see what the future is. So.
All right, cool. I think that was the last question. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you.
That was really cool. Very fun and engaging talk. Yeah, and so thank you everyone who attended and asked questions, and I hope that you got a lot of useful insights. You see Philip contacts on Twitter and LinkedIn. Feel free to add him and follow his YouTube as well. And if you would like to try the app, there's also a QR code, scan SewaYou, where you can actually see Philip. You're also one of the users, right? I think I saw you on the app too. Cool. Thank you so much. So yeah, I would like to officially close this event. Thank you so much again, Philip, and thank you everyone, and looking forward to seeing you at our upcoming events. Have a great evening for those of you based in Japan, great afternoon or morning for those of you based in other time zones. And yeah, good job, Philip, and ganbatte.
Thank you very much, everyone. And yes, thanks for spending time with me, and see you next one. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.